Well, hello and welcome to the Building Business Podcast powered by the Mount Pleasant Chamber of Commerce. We are here recording in the Charleston Radio Group studios with our friend Brian Cleary. Thank you, Brian, for all you do for us and all Charleston Radio Group does for us as a supporter of the Chamber. My name is Kathi Herrmann. I am your current president of the Mount Pleasant Chamber, and I am also the marketing director at Mount Pleasant Town Center. So thank you all so much for joining us. I'm here today with my co-host, Scott Labarowski. He is the current membership chair for the Chamber. So, Scott, introduce yourself and say hello.
Absolutely. I'm the current membership chair for the Chamber, and I've got a small independent insurance company.
Well, fantastic.
Home and auto and business and all the good stuff.
Well, this is your first co-chair with me.
Absolutely.
We are very excited to have you here, Scott.
Thank
but
you.
I am more excited to have our special guest today, I have to tell you. We have an incredible guest here in the studio. Jim Westerhold, the general manager of Boone Hall, Plantation and Gardens. Thank you for coming today, Jim.
It is a pleasure. Thank you for having me. This is also my first time on radio, and so Scott and I'll try not to mess this up for you.
Okay. Well, I've been doing this for a little while, so I'll make sure that you guys, we keep it on track. But I'm going to start. I'm so excited to talk to you about Boone Hall. One thing I want to tell you, though, Jim, is that I've been here 8 years. Anytime anybody comes to visit me for the first time, anytime they're in Charleston, the first thing that we do is we go to Boone Hall.
That's the way to do it.
It's without question our first stop for anyone who ever comes here. And when people leave there, I think they've changed. I honestly think they've changed, and that's thanks to you and your team. So we're going to get to that in a second, all about how important Boone Hall is to the area. But tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved to be the general manager of Boone Hall.
Well, it's great to hear. And so to get to answer that question, I need to talk about this gentleman by the name of Willie McRae.
And who doesn't know Willie McRae?
That's right. And so so in answering that question, I'll tell you, Willie, who was one when his parents bought this property in 1955, so 738 acres, which is now right in the middle of 100,000 people, that community we know of Mount Pleasant. So I got to know him, and he opened up, and his family opened up Boone Hall to tourism. And so all thanks go to Willie and his family, the McRae family. But I called Willie up. I started teaching in Georgetown when our daughter was very young, and because I wanted my summers free. And so I started teaching at a technical college in Georgetown. And so after about 2 weeks of being home with her in the summer, I wanted to go back to work for a farm. I grew up on a farm, always worked on a farm. And so I sent a blank email into Boone Hall Farms and didn't expect anything. But within the hour, this gentleman by the name of Willie called me and said, "Let's go riding around." And so we did. We rode around, and he pointed out certain tasks for me to take care of, and I did. I'd kind of dawdle around there and do odds and ends in the summers for 12 years.
Was it a part-time gig?
It was a part-time gig just in the
okay.
summers, and he'd call me sporadically to do some other things as well. But anyway, it was about 2 months in after I got to know Willie before I really knew who he was. He was that kind of a humble gentleman, sir, and so he never let on that he was the main owner. And so I got to know him. I got to know him first, and then unfortunately, as he was dying in early 2020, he offered me this job of general manager. And so since then, I started in May. Unfortunately, he died in April of 2020. I started in May of 2020.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So that. And we'll talk more about Willie as we go on here and what the McRaes have done for this community. But that's how I ended up at Boone Hall.
So did you work there all those years in between?
Yes. Yeah. So I've been a summer employee for 12 years, and then my recent gig as general manager for the last 4.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And you farmed? Did you farm?
Well, I would do other odds and ends. There was always a lead farmer, and I would always help them and help do other odds and ends and help them occasionally. And it was one day a week or a couple days a week. But the real and Willie never paid me, and I never accepted anything. For me, it was a treasure just to be able to pull in off the Highway 17 gate and drive on a dirt road.
Absolutely.
Our daughter, who was just a young girl at the time, we had a habit of, as soon as we pulled off the 17 gate, she knew what to do. She would climb up out of her car seat. She would unbuckle herself and climb up out of the car seat and sit in my lap and steer. And we'd put in John Denver Country Roads.
I love that.
And that was our habit. And so for me, that was so rewarding to be able to access that property that way. And I wish every child in Mount Pleasant had an ability to drive around on a country road a country dirt road.
I have enjoyed taking the tractor rides. Those are fun.
That's one of the best tours that we give, and that gives all of our tourists for the historical side, who are mostly from out of town. 90% of those folks on the historical side are from out of town, out of state, out of the country. And so to put them on a tractor-pulled wagon and then give them a guided tour around for the farm really is one of our best tours.
One of my best memories is when I brought my daughter when she was little. Now she's 21 years old. So for many years, it's, doing the tractor pull, going through the cornfields during in the fall. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And, on the farm side with the farm festivals, those
Right.
are opportunities for the community, the Mount Pleasant community and the greater Charleston area to come out and enjoy those days on the farm. Yeah, absolutely.
And for those that might be semi-new to the Mount Pleasant area, something that you said before made me laugh is you see this beautiful farm in the middle of Mount Pleasant on 17. It is actually a working farm.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. It is not like the rest of Mount Pleasant. And most of us celebrate that. There are some folks out there that, for some reason or another, don't like the look of a farm. But it is definitely a working farm.
They should move back to like New York City then or something.
Because
who doesn't want a farm in the middle of their town?
They're still our community, but it is quite different. Right. It is quite. We have over 150 neighbors, and we are significantly different than all of them.
And can you tell everybody a little bit about, and because I'm a little bit naive about this, but nothing will ever be built on Boone Hall, ever. So people driving by, there are not going to be condos or houses or anything ever built. How did that process happen?
That's right. Well, thank you for asking. So that goes way back to conversations with Willie, and he had other conversations with other individuals as well that were very important in him making the decision. But every now and then, Willie would bring up the fact, this is going back 16 years, that the building pressures around Boone Hall are starting to grow, and the traffic is starting to become a problem. And Willie didn't like that. And he was worried about what would become of Boone Hall down the road. And I'd always remind Willie that there was a tool called a conservation easement, which is a deed restriction. And Willie'd listen for about 3 seconds and then move on to another subject. And then as years went on, though, he'd become more and more open to this thing called a conservation easement. So, he died in April of 2020, but in November of 19, he, along with his sister Elizabeth, did put the property in a conservation easement. And in doing so, they themselves wrote restrictions on future uses of this property. And one such restriction is that we'll never have paved roads.
I love that.
Another restriction is that we'll never have any more than 5 houses on 738 acres.
Wow.
We are also constrained, and we're also constrained by the amount of impervious surfaces we have. We can build a little bit more, but not a lot more. So if a building is taken down by a Hurricane Hugo, we can rebuild that building. And we can rebuild it a little bit larger, but we can't build them all larger. And we can't add on another one. And so we are restricted in the amount of roof space or concrete that we have. And so you're right. It'll never be a wall.
Is there a time constraint on this, Jim? Or is it forever?
Forever.
That is the best time constraint ever.
Yeah, this is forever. And that's really important. I wish everyone in our community knew what that meant. And what it really means is, Kathi, you can bring your children, grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren to Boone Hall, and they'll always get the same experience. There'll always be a strawberry festival. There'll always be a pumpkin patch. And so the history, while we have so much history at Boone Hall, over 300 years of history, think about how long forever is from now. Mm-hmm. And so I even think our future is brighter than our history.
And we're certainly gonna talk about that.
Okay, great.
Later. Scott, didn't you have a question?
Oh, no, I was actually listening.
Let me,
I was enjoying it. You threw me a curve.
I threw you a curve.
Yes, you did.
I wanted to hear your voice.
So, we're talking about the landmarks. Preserving a historical landmark often includes delicate balance between conservation and education. How does Boone Hall approach the balance?
Yeah, good question. Well, part of the education is the conservation easement and the preservation, and letting everyone know that drives down that beautiful avenue that they can come back in future generations and experience just what they're seeing. And so that part of it is education, and that falls on us to make sure everybody in the community appreciates what Boone Hall and what Boone Hall will maybe never be or will always be for the future. And so we as far as education goes, we work with other partners. For example, the Low Country Land Trust holds that easement, and they're a local organization that holds that conservation easement and supports our efforts in keeping that property the way it is. And so we also have an education director that takes in many school groups and tries to do the best we can with educating school groups as well.
Can you talk a little bit about the houses and what is there? Because we talk about two sides. We know about the working farm aspect, but can you speak a little bit about what's actually else on the property?
Yeah, I'll do my best to describe it, although my words and even a picture doesn't paint it the best way it can be painted. The best way is to come visit. But driving a visitor on the historic side would drive down the avenue, which includes live oak trees.
Beautiful.
That aged back to 1743. And a 3/4 mile driveway. But along the left-hand side of that driveway, as they approach the center area, there are 9 original enslaved cabins that date back to 1790, and they're made out of brick, and that's likely the only reason they're still in existence is because they are made out of brick. There's also, just behind the enslaved cabins is a building called the Cotton Dock.
Right.
And a lot of
Many
people,
parties there at the Cotton Dock.
Locals that have come to the Cotton Dock. It's definitely an event space. Historically, though, that would have been the location where all the products and produce raised on the farm would have been loaded on a barge at high tide, and then taken into Charleston. So that would have been a main port.
Interesting.
And then there's also on the left near the enslaved cabins is a smokehouse that dates back to 1750s. It's also made out of brick. Most people don't see that unless they're on a tour, but as you drive up that avenue, most people are focused then on the house.
Right.
That was a centerpiece of the movie The Notebook.
Oh, we're going to talk about that.
And we're in North and South, but the house was built by a previous owner, the Stones, in the 1930s, mid 1930s. And so it's not an original house. It's still very, very iconic, though, as in a picture.
Right.
And then off to the right, our visitors park, but they will also see and now go into our newly rejuvenated gin house. Not the kind of gin where we can give out samples.
Oh.
In this case, gin is short for engine. And so it was a cotton engine, which we have reduced it down to just cotton gin. And so that building was built in probably 1850s. And Willie had restaurants in there and gift shops in there until 2006 when it was condemned. 2 years ago we started 2 years ago we started restoration on that and have just recently opened up the gin house. And then there's a cafe, there are stables as well. All of these things are part of our tours that are included with admission.
You talk about the age of the different properties. Probably takes a lot of money. Is there ongoing maintenance that you have to
That
incur?
is it. That is it. Wow, you've hit on a tough subject for us. The cost of maintenance has gone through the roof recently.
Wow.
And it has to be done in a specific way. It can't just be like, oh, let's just, slap some cedar plank on the side of that house. It has to be specific restorations, I'm assuming.
Absolutely. So, for example, with the brick in the gin house, built in, every one of those bricks for the gin house were made by hand by the enslaved right there on the property in the mid-1800s or before then. The new mortar we use, Portland cement, is harder than the brick. And so if you use the easy to use and very economical usable mortar, it'll break the brick.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So you have to use special mortar, for example. That's just
Right.
one example. And so the expense of that gin house was very, very expensive, but it was done in the right way.
Do you do a lot of your own maintenance in-house?
We do.
I
We
mean, I
do,
would
but
think you'd
mostly
have to
on the
contract with a special
Yeah.
company?
We do both. And so our maintenance staff mostly is taking care of the roads, the grounds, so to speak. And we have a garden staff also that takes care of the gardens, and they do a fabulous, fabulous job. But when it comes to historic structures, we farm that out.
Now, how many employees are on staff?
About 100.
All employees or volunteers or both?
We have zero volunteers.
Okay.
We would take volunteers. However, for guided tours and those kind of things, we need them to show up when they need to show up. We need them to be dependable. We have not had much luck with volunteers showing up just whenever they want to. And so we'll take volunteers, but for the most part, we pay.
All paid.
Because we need them to show up when they show up.
One of my favorite aspects of my tour, and again, I've gone multiple times, and I will continue to go, is that live Gullah Geechee.
Yeah.
I want to make sure I say it correctly. What is the actual name of the show?
Gullah. The Gullah show. The live Gullah show.
It had my sister-in-law, who doesn't get affected by anything, in tears. I've never seen her like that before. I think it actually changed her to be a nicer person, if you're listening, Arlene. And but that is an experience that is just, you have got to go see that. And how did that come about?
Yeah, absolutely. Quite an experience. Willie brought that about many decades ago, and it is the only daily live Gullah show you can see in Charleston. And we have right now 3 shows a day, and they are all packed.
Oh, yeah.
Besides our farm and nature tour, the tractor wagon ride around the property, the Gullah show is the hit, no doubt about it. And most people come in and say that we want to see the Gullah or Golo. They don't know how to pronounce it, but it's Gullah. And when they learn what it means and how Gullah is still a culture that is very live in Charleston, it makes all the meeting worthwhile.
Oh, it was absolutely incredible. The first one I saw, I was just completely blown away. And like I said, some people come down like, I don't want to sit through this. I'm like, listen, you have to understand something. You are not coming to Charleston and visiting Boone Hall and not sitting down for this. And then, of course, at the end, they're like, oh, thank you so much for making me see this.
Yeah, the Gullah show is a hit. And all I can say is that you have to do it. I can't sing like they can. I can't speak Gullah like they can. You have to experience it from a Gullah performer.
Very moving experience.
Yeah. One of the first times when I went to Boone Hall, I went for the wine festival.
Yes.
And I drove down this road with beautiful oak trees. I said, oh, there's a house. And that made me come back to explore more of the property. What other activities do you have during the course of the year?
Yeah, great question.
Events?
Great question. So we get that very commonly. The local community will come out for our festivals and come out for Wine Under the Oaks. The challenge is to get them to come back during the rest of the year. And we just ended, but this was the first year we did Black History Month.
Oh, wow.
And mostly because the gin house was finished, and downstairs in the gin house is a museum. We spent a lot of money, but our museum we're really, really proud of. And upstairs is an event space. We opened it up for the month of February, Black History Month, and led another organization, John Wright from the African American.
We know John
Settlement.
very well.
I figured
Yes.
everybody knows John Wright. Planned and organized activities and events for the whole month of February in the Gin House for Black History Month, and we just let them take hold of it and do it the way John would do it. And it was fabulous. It was well done. And so that's another example of how we're trying to get more locals out to come experience Boone Hall. And going back to Black History Month, I can't give John enough praises. They did a fantastic job. It was included, so those exhibits were included with our admission, the way we do everything. Everything's included with admission. Even the drive down that avenue is included with admission. And then we gave some of the proceeds back to their main project, which is the Long Point Schoolhouse.
Yeah.
Which is another fabulous project that we're happy to be partners with.
Well, I've been to Fright Nights. That was really fun that first time. But I'm actually a scaredy cat, believe it or not. Like, I don't like horror movies, and I don't like being scared. And I was really scared, Jim. I really was scared. But I had a good time. So if you have not been to Fright Nights, those are really fun.
I like the old car that they put out front.
Oh, right. The is it a hearse?
Hearse.
Yeah, or a limo.
Yes.
My favorite part is the tractor rides in the back at night.
So we have the pumpkin patch. We have the strawberry festival,
which is happening.
Yeah, the strawberry festival is coming up the first 2 weekends in April.
That's great.
April 5th, 6th, and 7th, and the 12th, 13th, and 14th. The first 2 weekends. It used to be just one weekend, but we couldn't provide the quality of service we needed to provide, and so we opened it up for 2 weekends. This is the 28th year this festival will happen.
Oh my God!
And so, back to traditions and thinking about how long is forever. We will now have children that came to some of those first strawberry festivals that are bringing their children.
Yep.
And again, I have to say that they'll be able to bring their children and grandchildren back to the 50th and the 60th and the 80th Strawberry Festival.
So how many people in that weekend for the Strawberry Festival do you think will go through the doors?
Yeah, a few thousand. And I'm going to stay away from exact numbers, but a few thousand. Yeah. And we want every one of them to go out there and pick a strawberry.
Right.
That's really the reward of having a strawberry festival, is having those children engage with learning more about where their food comes from. And
Right.
So we're a little bit worried about, especially the community of Mount Pleasant. If you asked a teenager where their food comes from these days, they would say the grocery stores.
Sure, right.
Well,
no, they comes from Willie's Market. Everybody,
Well,
okay,
that's
Willie's
right.
Market.
Go visit Willie.
We're going to be a farm forever. Remember the conservation easement, and in doing so, we need all future generations to appreciate farms and not just the grocery store. And so we want every child that visits Strawberry Festival out there picking their own strawberries and eating the strawberries out of the field.
Yes, and having that on
and
their
having
face,
the juice
right?
come down
Yep.
their chin. Those are experiences that are so rewarding for us.
One thing I love too is you guys have done an amazing job to me of giving the community such a different array of events. So you have all the children events, and then you've got the oyster festival, and then you've got the wine. And then and the Fright Night. So you have everything for the adults, everything for the kids, everything for the families. Just a great schedule of events.
It is. We're really excited about those. Of course, we have great partners to help us with all those events. I mentioned John Wright and African American Settlement Community helping us with Black History Month. Of course, we have Charleston Radio Group that helps us with that partners with us for Wine of the Oaks, and we have other sponsors. I don't know if I can mention other sponsors, but Starling Chevrolet helps us tremendously.
One of my favorite people. Jim.
Yeah, they sponsor and have been sponsoring our farm events, the Pumpkin Patch and the Strawberry Festival. And so we don't do this by ourselves,
right?
Obviously, and we do have a wide range of events. And with each one of them, we're trying to find a way of giving back to the community, along with making sure the property is used, but then left better for the next time we have a festival. For example, the Oyster Festival, which is really not our event. It's held at Boone Hall, but it's another partner is the Charleston Restaurant Foundation holds that event, and that's a charity event. And so obviously big in oysters. So this year, we're going to take some of those recycled oysters and build a new oyster reef right there on the side of Boone Hall in the back lawn. And so it's a great opportunity to have future oyster festivals and then give back and promote the property and make sure the property is in a better state moving forward.
Well, I remember when I first moved here, my first event for Town Center, this would have been in April of 2016. I believe it was Fido Fest, or it was one of my dog events, but I was new. I'd only been here 3 months. So I did not know to not have an event on the same day that Boone Hall was having an event.
That's a no-no.
And so that was I learned fast, Scott. I'll
tell you what, you can't even get down 17.
I learned fast. Not only that, but nobody was at my event because everybody was at the Strawberry Festival because we did it in April. So I learned. So now And we get, and it's fun. I've had conversations with your marketing team before, Jim, about, because I have really big events and you have really big events. And the first thing I do is I'll look and I'll say, when is he not having an event? When are they not having an event? And that's when I'll book mine.
Yep. That's pretty smart.
Yeah. We want the whole community to come out and I've heard this before. When I started this job 4 years ago, I heard about the downside of our events with traffic. And I think we've gotten much better at that. But I ask everyone just to have patience during those few days we have festivals, because that's how the property is going to be used to maintain itself. Instead of, the alternative would be Willie selling this property for development. Right. And then we'd have traffic, bad traffic, the other 350 days out of the year. And so we just ask for some patience.
I think you do a really great job. I've seen a change because I have to pass you to go to work every day. And I've seen a change during, just with the police officers there and the signage.
Oh, it's always very smooth.
Very, very, very smooth. So let those people that complain, Jim, just ignore them. Well, that's all I'm going to tell you.
Well, listen, we've another one of our great partners who actually does Fright Night, puts on all of Fright Night, but they handle a lot of other logistics for us also as Live Productions, and they do a fantastic job with traffic and pedestrian control. And they put on a fabulous Fright Night. Right. Fabulous Fright Night. They do all that almost all themselves, and they do a great job.
I've been there many times picking up my daughter. I drive in, wait for her to come out, and then drive right back out. So,
did she have fun?
Hell, she had a blast. Yeah. She's always told me, Daddy, I want to go work. I say, no problem. I'll drive you there, and that's all that happens.
I want to do it, but I just never go.
So what are some of your... we're talking about giving back in the community and in these events. What's on your radar in terms of the future? What are some things that you're looking to do as a general manager?
Yeah, thank you. Well, some things we just recently done that are in the process of starting to give back. So the Black History Month and giving back to the Long Point Schoolhouse. We've already been a big supporter of the Long Point Schoolhouse. That's our neighboring settlement community.
Right.
So we want to be good neighbors. We're starting to grow. I'm pretty excited about this. We're starting to grow sweetgrass.
Nice.
Now sweetgrass is growing really everywhere in a horticultural setting. It's a beautiful, beautiful plant when it flowers in October. However, when it's grown in a horticultural setting, which is what I've learned, and I've had the tremendous opportunity to learn a lot, and so I'm so blessed. But what I've learned from Corey Alston, who is a major and highly recognized sweetgrass basket maker, that sweetgrass, if it's grown with fertilizer or irrigation, is not good material for baskets. Really? And so under his advice, we're growing sweetgrass now in a more of a natural wild setting. We're starting to get established, but in another year or two, that material will be harvested by basket makers for free right here in the Charleston area, which is one of those restrictions on the sweetgrass basket. And going back to Gullah, the sweetgrass basket, there's no other key element that I think of that's still left behind that's tangible than the sweetgrass basket. And so it's very important that we carry on that culture. And so Boone Hall is just trying to be a part of that. There is Willie's Market, and we haven't talked much about Willie's Market, but it just opened last Monday. Willie's Market is that beautiful building out on Highway 17, and that's where we're selling all of our local produce. And so
my wife sends me there all the time.
That's our good.
She says, "Come on." My wife loves to cook, and she'll say, "We got to keep it local."
We just opened up You Pick Strawberries today, and so You Pick Strawberries will happen. And so then again, that's part of the education. And Willie's Market is an outreach for us to get out there on Highway 17 and to promote the farm and let everybody know the farm is there. And so,
what's in Willie's Market? Just mainly produce.
Mainly produce.
Yep.
Yeah.
The freshest produce.
Absolutely.
I love the new building too. That was a beautiful construction.
Yeah,
it looks like it belongs right where it is.
Right.
That's how I feel.
Yeah, we're excited. That has a story as well. And so that was built originally in Mount Pleasant I think in 2018, 19, taken back down. It's all mortise and peg, kind of old school construction. And it was taken down in Mount Pleasant. The owner didn't like it. Sold to this lady in Hendersonville, North Carolina. She let it sit on trailers for 2 years, and then we found out about it. in 2022. Bought it, shipped it back down here, and then put it back up, and there we are with that building.
Wait, it was up somewhere else?
It was up. It was in Mount Pleasant.
It was in Mount Pleasant, not at Boone Hall.
Taken down.
Okay.
Shipped into Hendersonville,
now I'm gonna
North
have
Carolina.
to think about where I've seen that building before.
You wouldn't have been able to
No?
see it.
Okay.
It was off the highway, and then fortunately, she never did put it up in Hendersonville, North Carolina. We
It was in Kathy's backyard.
Yeah. With all of my fresh produce. No, not me. I have to go. I go to Willie's to get my fresh produce.
We are really excited about that building.
You know, we were before we started, we were talking about. Everybody knows the old Red Barn building.
Yes.
Speak to that, and how
Yeah,
that came about. I thought that was very interesting.
We still get questions about that all the time, and you're talking about, it was called Boone Hall Farmers Market on the east side of Highway 17, and that building was leased by Boone Hall, and then the lease was not renewed in 2020,
Right.
and so we decided to move that business minus the restaurant back over to,
over
on
the
our
property.
side and call it Willie's.
Yeah.
So now it's Willie's Roadside Produce Market.
And you refurbished a barn.
Yeah, that's
all
right.
intents and
Refurbished
purposes.
the barn. Yeah.
That's amazing. So if another tidbit that most people who live here should know, because I'm going to go back to the movies now, is that everyone's favorite, The Notebook, and I don't care if you had to love that movie. Everybody loves The Notebook. Don't shake your head at me, Brian. I know everybody loves The Notebook. Was filmed at Boone Hall. And, that's really big for people who love that movie so much and love that book. But apparently there's other movies that have been filmed there that I don't know about. So you need to share those with us.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, again, I invite our visitors to go inside the Gin House. We have our marketing director is Rick Benthal, and he's been working on this 2-minute movie of all of the scenes from The Notebook, North and South, and Queen, and a few others. Wheel of Fortune, a part of Wheel of Fortune was filmed out there, and some others. But he has all of the highlights of those movies in Hollywood shrunk into 2 minutes, playing over and over and over in our Gin House. And so our visitors can come see those special highlights from those movies.
Oh, I need to do that.
And then come out and see the grounds where some of those things were filmed. And so, yeah, The Notebook, obviously, people know about The Notebook and they're crazy about The Notebook. I was given a tour, or occasionally on a good day I get out and give a tour. And I was doing the Farm and Nature tour, so I was on the wagon with a group of 45 people, and we passed by one of the scenes of The Notebook, and I said, have any men on this wagon seen the movie The Notebook? And this guy raised his hand. Most times women are like, raise your hand.
You've watched it with me, honey. I know you have.
Yeah. But this guy,
My wife tells me that all the time.
All over it. And so when we got back down on the ground, and he approached me and said, that's my wife's favorite movie. He took off his wedding ring and had The Notebook inscribed in his wedding ring.
Oh, wow.
And he said, we're on our 1-year anniversary, and I surprised her with this trip to Charleston to show her all the scenes of The Notebook.
Wow.
And so The Notebook.
Where's he? What a romantic guy. I love that.
I was just glad to be around and to be alive after my first year of marriage.
Notebook is something special for sure. But North and South was filmed there as well. And then the movie Queen. And Queen is the Alex Haley sequel to Roots, and probably best known for introducing Halle Berry to the rest of the world.
That's right.
Well, one tidbit, my brother is a movie producer up in Charlotte and comes to Charleston and has looked at that property to do different things over the years. Nothing's ever materialized on it, but
Bring them on.
yeah.
Got another Notebook, the sequel.
Oh, wow.
No, I'm just saying.
I don't know.
Oh,
It
right,
really
okay.
is. Bring them on, the sequel.
It's just for some reason that movie just, reigns in so many women's hearts because it's just such a love story, and I'm honored that it was filmed here.
Sure.
I think it's so much fun.
How many people go through the gates? We talked about the attendance on the one side, but at the other.
Again, I can't share numbers, but we are pretty busy right now. Slowest usually January, and then right now is definitely a big upswing with the warmer weather and the azaleas blooming, and it's still being colder in northern climates, but we're right there where everybody wants. This is a Chamber of Commerce kind of time of year.
Oh yes,
Absolutely.
And what about wildlife, Jim? Is there wildlife on the
Thank you.
farm?
So That's my background. Thank you for asking. Ooh. Yeah, I'm traditionally a wildlife biologist. I grew up on a farm and been a wildlife biologist. I have a master's degree in wildlife management. I'm not doing much wildlife management now, but that's what I taught in college before this job. And so wildlife is definitely something I don't get to talk about very often. So, Kathi, thank you.
I love animals. That's my problem.
Bald eagles. We have a pair of bald eagles. They do mate for life, and so they've been using the same nest on Boone Hall for the last now 8 years, and they always raise at least 1 or 2 eaglets every year. Right now, they have 1 eaglet, and that eaglet is about to bust out of the nest. That eaglet standing on the nest.
Can you see them, Jim?
Oh, yeah.
Or is there a camera on them?
We don't have a camera on those.
But you actually see the nest?
You can see the nest.
Okay.
And the pair of mature bald eagles, the mom and dad are around there often feeding their young. But the eaglet, is almost full grown and will fledge the nest in another few weeks. And but it won't get a white head and white tail until they become sexually mature themselves.
Really?
But that same pair will come back. Hopefully they come back next year and the year after that.
And so the nest just stays there, waits for them?
They leave that nest. That's right. Speaking of cameras, though, in nests, we do have cameras on bluebird boxes. And so we have three bluebird boxes that will also nest bluebirds this time of year in early spring in April. And we have cameras on those, and that's a live feed from our website. We have alligators, of course, that are easily seen. My daughter and I built the first alligator float. And so all it is a float with some wood, kind of like a dock, what we would use, a floating dock, but we built it just for alligators and stake it out there so alligators can lay. And suntan there within sight of our visitors and not on the road where our visitors are.
Right.
Don't tell my wife that. She might send me out there for a couple hours.
Yeah, so we have a lot of alligators, turtles, of course, white-tailed deer, raccoons, possum, bobcat, coyote, you name it.
Horses?
And horses, and horses. I'm really proud of one other wildlife adventure that we have, and that's fox squirrels. And so I think maybe if you live on Dandelion, you might know what fox squirrels are, but I don't think there are any left in Mount Pleasant. So fox squirrels are a little bit larger than our gray squirrels, and uniquely, they're all unique. They all have a little bit of gray, a little bit of white, and a little bit of black, but none of them look the same.
Really?
And so there are pockets of them all around the low country of South Carolina. Boone Hall has great habitat for it. All those old pecan groves and open woods. Boone Hall is a perfect habitat for it, but they're not there. And so my guess is they've been replaced or moved out and then not been able to find it. So the Department of Natural Resources has brought some back. And we have a donor that will donate these fox squirrels. DNR brings them to us and releases them. And so the idea is we will have a sustainable population of fox squirrels, these squirrels that most people in Mount Pleasant have never seen.
That's something to be really proud of, Jim.
It's really neat. It's really neat, yeah.
That's fascinating.
All right, well, before we let you go, I'm going to ask you one more question.
All right.
Okay. So we're talking about how we have 300 years of history of Boone Hall. And we know that we're going to have a forever of Boone Hall because of the great things that were done to preserve this incredible, incredible place. So what do you see the future of Boone Hall? Do you see it exactly the same? Do you see any changes? Like what do you see in the next 25 years, not 300? Before we get spaceships and, floating cars and things like that.
Great question. And I only wish I had the foresight of those folks who planted those live oaks 300 years ago. And unfortunately, I do not. But I think in the next 25 years, we will keep making improvements to buildings in a nice historic way, like we've done with the Gin House. We will maintain Willie's Produce Market now and making sure that's supplied with fresh produce. And so we'll keep up the farm. By the way, the farming is becoming harder and harder and harder also because of all of our supplies are becoming harder and harder to find locally.
Right.
And so we have some challenges ahead just because we're a lot different than everyone else. And those challenges will become even more and more difficult. But we can also celebrate those challenges and how we're different. And we will continue to find those ways of helping everyone appreciate how different we are and why we're different and what's going to be the future. And so we will keep continuing to do things like the sweetgrass We also have a small forest of longleaf pine, which longleaf has mostly disappeared from this area as well. It's in the Francis-Marion National Forest, but it's a very rare pine species, and it's our native pine. And so we have a small display of pine trees. We have a special pines. We have a small display of cotton and indigo. And so we will continue to find diversity and promote that history and improve the property over the next 25 years within reason and still respecting that history.
Not only that is, the ability to give back to the community, I think is, hugely important and ongoing, the traditions that you've started.
Yeah, absolutely. We're definitely part of this community we call Mount Pleasant, where we're now right in the middle of it. And it somewhat breaks my heart when someone speaks out that they don't like the farm there. And so then it's our job it's our challenge to be a better part of the community and help them understand what we're going to be doing forever. And we're not going away. We're just trying to do it better so that they can understand.
Absolutely.
You just tell me who they are. I'll have a conversation with them, okay, Jim?
Thank you, Kathi.
Well, on behalf of the Chamber, of course, we love having Boone Hall as a member. We love your spirit and everything that you've done for the community. Personally, like I said, it's one of my favorite places to visit, and I can't wait, like you said, to hopefully bring my grandchildren there one day and just have them to continue to visit.
Before you cut, what can our membership do to help you overcome these challenges that you're facing? Right? Can you ask that question?
What
The challenges you were just speaking?
Right.
Yeah. Our membership, what can we do to help? What can our listeners do?
Okay, got it.
I
Yep.
need you to
Yep,
answer.
I got it. Are you going to add?
Scott?
You want to do it? Go ahead.
Yeah. Jim, we've got a growing and vibrant membership with the Chamber. What can we do to support your efforts? And what can the members do to support your efforts?
Yeah, great question. Well, thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for the Chamber and Charleston Radio Group for hosting me and to get to explain kind of the back roads of Boone Hall. And I think the Chamber, moving forward, the Chamber can keep doing what they're doing and allowing Boone Hall to be Boone Hall and speaking up for Boone Hall. They're going to be a farm forever. And the Chamber's already doing a great job of supporting. But I think any opportunity, like you said, Kathi, just let me know who those people are complaining. Well, I think if you hear those folks that are maybe misunderstood about the purpose of Boone Hall and about the future of Boone Hall, then maybe speak to them or send them to us, and we'll be glad to give them that answer, what our real purpose is and our mission and how we want to be a community.
I think that's key. There's a lot of misunderstanding and misperception, and hear it from the source and saying, hey, yes, no, and different, whatever it may or may not be. But to have that feedback, I think is valuable. Our membership, in addition to doing what you're saying, speaking out the truth and helping, hopefully they'll come visit.
Right.
And attend. And all the wonderful events that y'all put on is amazing. I've been to several of them, like we've talked about. But most importantly, knowing we have this gem of history in the middle of Mount Pleasant in our backyard, I think speaks volumes.
Yeah, thank you, Scott.
All right, awesome. It was such a pleasure to have you, Jim. Before we leave, we're going to thank again our sponsors, Charleston Radio Group Studios, our friend Brian Cleary, and of course to the Mount Pleasant Chamber of Commerce. If you'd like to be a sponsor or a guest on our show, just reach out to us and we will get back to you. Be sure to like and subscribe to all of our media channels. We'll be in Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So thank you all so very much for being with us here today. Until next time, Mount Pleasant. Until next time, listeners.